The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies, Coat Arms Paints, and Wargame Soldiers and Strategy magazine, as well as the generous donations of you, the listener. Many thanks to everyone for your continued support. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode 103. Empire of the Dead and the Requiem Kickstarter, with Andy and Wendy Cooper from Requiem Productions. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast with me, your host Neil Shook. On today's show we're going to be talking all about Empire of the Dead, which is the 28mm Victorian steampunk horror skirmish game from Requiem Productions. Now this was released at Salute last year and has been quietly bubbling under, but has been given an extra boost by a recent Kickstarter of their second wave of miniatures, which is entitled Empire of the Dead Requiem. The Kickstarter is due to finish on the 26th of March, and I thought it would be an ideal opportunity to catch up with Westwind founder and sculptor Andy Cooper and chat all about what they got planned for the range, what they got planned for the Kickstarter, and give us some hints of what we're likely to see between now and the end of March. Now obviously it's all very well talking about the Kickstarter, but I've yet to talk about the game on the show. Now I must admit I have actually reviewed the rules in an edition of Battle Games, but I've actually not talked about them on the show before, so I thought it was an ideal time to just explain to you all about the game and how it works. If you remember listening to the Salute shows last year, I actually got to talk to both of the game designers. So hopefully you've at least heard the game if you've been listening to the podcast for a while. So what we're going to do, we're going to launch straight into the show. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll be chatting to Andy about the Kickstarter project that Westwind are currently running.
I don't like it, Sergeant. Me neither, sir. Good Lord, it's really looking pretty bad. Yes, sir. It happens every time, sir. It's too predictable, sir. How far do you think we've advanced, Sergeant? 6 inches, sir. It's always 6 inches. We advance 6 inches, then Jerry gets a go. The lads are calling it Hi-Go Hugo, sir. Hi-Go Hugo? Good grief. And they don't like it, sir. Oh, not like it. Seems pretty straightforward to me. Rather like cricket. We have an innings, then the other chap does. Well, that's all very well, sir, cricket, sir, but begging your pardon, it ain't like that, sir, in war. I don't think Mr. Hitler plays like that. What, Hitler? No, gosh, he'd like to go all the time. Oh, Lord, sir, lovely. Oh, well, sir, anyway, sir, it's like this, sir. If it carries on like this, Hi-Go Hugo, me and the lads won't be coming to your Thursday evening games club, and that's the way it is, sir. Looking for more of a challenge with your World War II games? Are you tired of the predictability of Hi-Go Hugo systems? Iron Bean Shopman provides real command challenges on an unpredictable battlefield. Two Fat Lardies, playing the period and not the rules since 2002. Pip pip.
I very recently had a chance to have a telephone conversation with Andy and Wendy Cooper from Requiem Productions, and had the opportunity to chat to them about Empire of the Dead, the whole Kickstarter process, and where they saw the game going in future. First off, I spoke to Andy and I asked him what he thought of the Kickstarter experience so far.
Yeah, good. Everything's really good. I'm pretty pleased how things are going. With £200 off getting Ned Kelly.
Not bad for a couple of weeks, is it?
yeah. Well, pleased. Well, it's really good. I'm pleased. I think most of it is feeling the support from people for what you're doing.
Yeah.
It feels really good. It kind of gives you energy to get out there and do more stuff.
It is an interesting experience. I mean, this is only I think this is only the second Kickstarter I've really been involved in.
Yeah.
I got on board with the Dreadball one last year. And,
right. Yeah.
And it really is amazing. Just what kind of community and excitement just that whole thing drives. It does seem quite strange in some ways, but the fact that simply being involved in something like that, has its own entertainment value. And you do find yourself logging on 2 or 3 times a day, seeing where the total is, seeing what people are commenting about, waiting for the updates, and all this, that, and the other. And it really does take on a life of its own. It really is quite weird.
There's a buzz about it. There's definitely a buzz about it. The first couple of weeks, it's like, what is going on? It's like it's coming from the left, from all over the place. The information overload kind of thing.
This is it. And of course, from your point of view, if it's not careful, because you're kind of in a situation where you're constantly being driven by, can we do this? Can we have that? Can we do this? Oh, we've got a stretch goal. Oh, we've hit another stretch goal. You're constantly on the go, aren't you? You're constantly at that point of kind of going, oh, hang on a minute. We've just gone through a $5,000 stretch goal and it's like 3 a.m. in the morning or what have you, all crumbs,
Yeah, and then you've got to go, I've got to sort the graphics out. I've got to go back, sort the graphics out, say that's achieved, update the Kickstarter website, let everybody know where we're up to, what's coming next. And it all takes it takes time, actually. It takes about an hour to do all the update bits and to deal with it, to speak to everybody, try and answer everybody's questions and things. It is quite intense, I would recommend getting a crate of Red Bull before they start Kickstarter. I really would.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, as you say, I know I was on a couple of times chatting to one of the guys who was managing the Mantic one, and he said, especially like when they first kicked off, and then at 2 or 3 points during it, and especially the last week, he said he just, first couple of days didn't get a lot of sleep. The last week was absolutely manic, and especially when it comes like last 2 or 3 days, there's a bit of a bell curve on these sort of things. Yeah, and it does tend to plateau out about this time, and then with about 4 or 5 days to go, all of a sudden it usually tends to start rolling again. And then part of the secret of doing a good one is keeping it going through the time when most things plateau.
Keeping the momentum going.
That's
that's what I found. I mean, we're definitely at a plateau, and it had sort of gone really flat. And it's only when we sort of went, okay, let's address this points thing, because that was really complicated. And people probably think, oh, it's a bit simple, but because the pledges are gradiated, you get more the higher you go.
Yeah.
So your points are worth less. The points buy you more the higher up you go, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So you can't just go, here's an arbitrary. You can just add points to your level, your pledge level. You've got to sort of find the right price that sort of doesn't make the higher levels disadvantage to the lower levels, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because you could buy in you could pledge at like the cheapest pledge, which has got free shipping on it, and then buy points, and get a better deal than somebody who's pledged quite a lot. Who's committed a lot to the project. So we had to sort of really work that out, and that's why we were sort of like prevaricating about it a bit and saying, what do we do? But it's really, once we did that and once we got over that sort of hump, then it really started going again. I mean, today and yesterday it's really started going again, so it's great.
Yeah.
And we've got a couple of weeks left yet. So
it may sound daft, but because you're on the UK Kickstarter site, it doesn't seem to be going up as much, because an awful lot of the Kickstarters that have been, because the UK Kickstarter site is still relatively new. It's only been launched for several months.
Yeah.
So an awful lot of people are used to the US Kickstarter sites.
Yeah.
Where, of course, you put this into US and you're talking 80, 90k.
Yeah.
As opposed to 50k. And of course, things tend to go up more simply because of the exchange rate and what have you. And it is interesting just how, it sounds stupid, but just that change in currency, and how it affects numbers and how it affects people's perceptions. I think there's just this mental perception on numbers.
Yeah. They go, pounds, they're expensive. Yeah. Kind of.
Well, there's that, and also the fact that you look at this and kind of go, well, if it was in dollars, multiply it by 50%, and all of a sudden it's like hitting that magic 100,000. Because that you notice on other Kickstarters that there are certain magic figures. It's like on the Westwood one, clicking over 50k. Yeah. It's a bit of a magic figure.
It's a landmark, isn't it? Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. That's it.
And we hit 500 backers today as well. Yesterday.
Yes.
And I was waiting for 500. I didn't say, oh great, we've hit 500 backers immediately, because sometimes people just drop out.
Yeah.
People come and go kind of thing, and I didn't want it to drop back down to like 500 and go, oh, right, okay, we haven't hit 500 backers. Yeah. So that's a landmark as well, so I see what you're saying there,
Yeah, but that's all kind of part of this whole Kickstarter event sort of thing. Having been involved in a couple and seen several others, it's really strange in some ways just how it kind of takes on this whole life of its own.
It is. Yeah.
Well, I say especially with the case of how everything took off and what have you.
Oh, the initial day was crazy.
Yeah.
It was insane for us. I mean, it really was. It was like, what? What's going on? But it was just awesome. It was really good.
Yeah.
I mean, what it is. I think part of it is like before you go there, you've got a fear of it, because in a way, if you fail, it would be kind of bad in a way, because it kind of undermines your self-confidence kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're putting yourself out there, and you're kind of going to feel the love, if you know what I mean. You're going to find out if what you've been doing for say the last 10 years or whatever as a company, as a person, is actually people like it or not, and you've not been just banging your head against the wall, going, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, very much so, yeah.
Well, it was great to see that. I mean, really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's something about planning the whole thing and sorting out where you're going to pitch stuff and making where your pledge goals are going to be and sorting out where all your achievement markers are and all that sort of thing. I mean, obviously from your side of things, there's got to be a lot of planning involved. Oh. And we've seen, I mean, even quite recently, we've seen the issues that occur when you kind of go, okay, this is my goal. My goal is look out and go, right, okay, I need 100 grand. Bang. Yeah. And you see the dangers of what happens when you don't get there.
Yes, it does kind of undermine you in a way, it's got to be slightly damaging, I have to say. So that's the big worry. That was the worry for us when we went there, sort of thing. Which is why we kind of set an affordable. It's what we actually needed. We set. That's what we set. We want to do this with it, and I'm the sculptor of the company, so I don't care if I don't get paid for my work, but I've got to pay everybody else, if you know what I mean. So, it's nice to get paid, but I'm willing to commit to I'm committing my time and sort of my work to the project, so that's me. But the rest of it, I've got to have the molds made and all that kind of stuff, and that's a cost. So that's what we were looking to do, to cover that initial cost and then see where it took us from there, basically.
And of course, the thing was, you hit that in 2 hours?
We hit that in 2 hours, yeah. Not quite as good as Zombicide.
Oh, well,
that was 2 minutes, I think, yeah.
That was something crazy like $500,000 in under an hour, wasn't it? Something like that.
It was a lot of money, yeah. yeah.
With yourselves, it was a case of, okay, $5,000, a sensible, achievable initial goal, and if that was what, as far as your budget was concerned, was okay, that's the very minimum we need to make sure we can get off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And the rest, as more money is pledged to the project, it means we can expand the sort of scope of what we want to do.
Yeah.
So we've added quite a lot, which is why we were sort of like, people kind of going, what's in the complete collector? And we're kind of like, no, we can't actually say yet because we want to get these things kind of, like the steam exoskeleton, for instance, is actually, I finished that today. I finished sculpting that today. So
okay.
We'll master mould it and then get the parts off to Spain, and the Spanish guy paints our stuff over there. We'll get it painted, hopefully early next week. So then we can show people, because showing a nicely finished one is kind of what I want to do.
Yeah. Right from the point where you launched Empire of the Dead, it was Salute last year, wasn't it?
It was.
And you came out with the initial 4 box sets, and then you produced the zombies, and there was a couple of character models, and then, to be perfectly honest, for the last, best part of 6 months, it's kind of been pretty quiet, isn't it? And from our perception of it, you kind of, Westwind's kind of been going on doing a few bits and pieces, and there's lots of Forged in Battle stuff coming out, but nothing much as far as Empire of the Dead was concerned. And then all of a sudden, obviously, you hit us with Requiem. I mean, how long have you actually been planning this for?
Well, the way it works for us, what we did when we did Empire of the Dead, we decided to change the way we sort of bring a project to market. We decided to get the entire thing together, because previous to that, The Secrets of the Third Reich, which was the game before that, it took us about 4 years to actually work our way through that project. And it was coming out on a sort of irregular sort of basis. We'd finish these units, release packs, move on to the next sort of bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But this time I wanted the figures done before we did the book. So the figures are in the book. And then the whole deal, we can then present that to shops, because traditionally that's how you do it. You take your offer to the shops and then do your distribution and then do your direct sales, all that kind of stuff. We got that sort of way of working, and that had been really successful with the launch of Empire of the Dead. Lots of people bought into it, and there's a lot of people playing it, and it's got a load of good reviews. So after that, we were looking at doing the expansion, but we'd have to do the same thing, which would essentially have been for Salute this year.
Right.
So by the time we got to October, and Kickstarter went, okay, you can now sort of access this in the UK. So we had to make a decision then. Do we continue doing what we've been doing, or do we try something else? And we decided to try something else. So
what was the catalyst to actually try Kickstarter? I mean, was it a case of seeing how it had gone with other projects?
Yeah, observational sort of, look at that. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it is just I think it's changed the whole marketplace. I think it's really, I wouldn't say turned it on its head. Because, I mean, traditionally, you've kind of come up, you're up against a few obstacles. You're kind of up against big companies who kind of control a lot of, let's say they own quite a lot of the shops, etc.
Yeah.
And then you've got companies who are distribution companies who distribute to the shops. So if you don't get your product into those distribution companies, you can't get your stuff into the shops.
Yeah.
And in the UK and Europe, you just can't get your stuff into the shops. I mean, there's a few smaller shops, but the big shops are... So it's all kind of nailed down tight. So you've got to try and find a different way to market, and it seemed to us like that's the best new way to market.
Yeah.
You can reach a lot of people. Plus, we can reach a lot of overseas customers in the US, Canada, Australia. There's a lot of people on Kickstarter who probably never heard of us. And I'm kind of getting that back from the comments and stuff. You can sort of tell the people of like, oh, what's this?
Very much a case of, like, for example, I noticed on what I was seeing when people start going on about, oh, well, hang on a second, can you get hold of this, and can you get hold of that, and can we get hold of this? And it's like, well, actually, all that already exists. It's on their website. Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So they just don't have a clue what who you are and what you do. It's kind of weird, because you think, oh, we've been doing it for years, but people, we've never really managed to get that sort of market penetration or that sort of exposure to people.
It really has seemed to, as you said, change the way that people bring products to market in the last 18 months or so. And even in itself, I suppose to a certain extent, it's still a risk, because at the end of the day, there is still only a certain number, only a certain amount of hobby dollars or hobby pounds out there, isn't there?
There is, yeah, you're right, there is. But I think, you're still getting new customers, a lot of new people, because you're getting that sort of cross-fertilisation between the board game people and the miniatures people that you've never had before. Before they've always existed in niches, the board game niche, the miniatures niche, the card game niche, especially the computer games people. You've probably had a complete generation of people that have never seen miniatures games because they've just gone straight into computer games.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm kind of guessing that a lot of people that are coming to us and finding us are those kind of people.
We'll come back and discuss kind of look and feel in a second, but I mean, obviously there is a bit of an elephant in the room as well, in the fact of you've got this other set of steampunk rules coming out I think it's been launched in May, isn't it? And and they're kind of looking at launching stuff, and I know Nick at North Star's been ignore Kickstarter and done his own kind of pre-order sort of thing. You can turn around and say I don't want to answer that question, but I mean, obviously was the fact that In Her Majesty's Name was coming, was that a kind of a bit of a factor in saying, okay, we need to get this to market sooner than waiting until Salute?
Well, we would have started pre-marketing it before Christmas, really, which is what we did originally with the first Empire of the Dead. So
yeah,
no, not really. To be honest, those guys will make the market bigger. If you know what I mean. I don't see that competition so much as making the actual pool of people who are interested in it larger, because it's like, the more people play American Civil War, the more American Civil War things get sold,
Well, certainly, I mean, with that, and of course, there was that, the one whose name keeps escaping me, is it Wolfsung, came out back end of last year as well, wasn't it? With that, again, slightly different take on steampunk, but that came out, and all of a sudden it seems that the steampunk market has grown, and people are becoming much more aware of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So from that side of things, as you say, there's a kind of a cross-fertilisation going on, isn't there?
It's good. I mean, you've got Malifaux as well, which is kind of slightly different. That's more fantasy-ish kind of steampunk. I mean, it's really, really steampunk. It's right on the edge of steampunk, if you know what I mean.
So you've been obviously planning to say, okay, well, let's go with this. So you've launched the Kickstarter, and that's come out with a set of miniatures, which was originally in the Kickstarter 79. Was that always your initial intention, or was it a case of we'll say, okay, this is what we'll launch with, and then we'll see where we go from there?
Well, we already had a bunch of stuff under construction. We had the police faction, and we had a bunch of gentlemen, and some more monks, and the Count faction, the Order of the Dragon, that kind of stuff. So we already had that sort of part way through in last October kind of thing. We were working up to it, and then it was kind of like, okay, well, if we're going to do it, let's do it properly, and actually set this out. Because if we can get funding for this, then we can do all this,
Yeah.
Which is what we said, and then we just sort of set our minds to it. And we've actually added to it since we started, because we've kind of run out of stuff, So we've been having to sort of like pedal like crazy to catch up, with people's demands for stuff, which is really good,
Obviously, when you first launched, you had these 79 figures, of which we saw an awful lot of the concept art already existed, because if nothing else, you had all the outlines blanked out and stuff. But obviously, you had to know what those outlines looked like in the first place. Obviously, all the concept art and stuff was there, and you said, okay, we've got a load of vehicles coming out, and then, as you say, it's one of those things. All of a sudden, it was like, oh, hang on a minute, and then you've come out with this new roadmap. 3-4 days ago now.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all these extra factions and extra bits and pieces started appearing. Now, like today, for example, you've previewed the clickers for the first time. Now, I know clickers have been kind of hinted at. Clues have appeared on your Facebook page about it for a while, but it's really one of the first times we've seen something, isn't it?
Yeah. We sort of planted the seeds of the clickers back in the original book.
Yeah.
And it was always the intention not to reveal the clickers until way down the road kind of thing, because the clickers are kind of key component in the sort of overall story arc.
Yeah.
Which is only vaguely hinted at in the book, that what's going on, because when we kind of get to the next section, it'll explain a lot about what's actually going on. I mean, I might even do it as a reveal in the Kickstarter, that I'll talk about Infernium and what Infernium is and how it relates to everything in the game.
Yeah.
Because Infernium is key. It's kind of like in Secrets we had V-gas, and Infernium's the same kind of principle. In that there's one thing that changes everything, and this is it.
Right, I see. So the way you kind of couch things at the moment, obviously you're saying, okay, right, with the Kickstarter, you're launching you're saying, okay, that's coming with the PDF of the original rule set,
yeah.
And then you're launching PDFs for the new factions and PDFs of the rules for carriages and what have you.
Yeah.
So are we at some point going to expect to see a second book for Empire of the Dead, or is it going to be a case of it's almost going to be like drip thread into the so basically as the models come out, they'll have all rules, and then the story arc and what have you will be kind of drip fed in that. Is that kind of the way you're planning it, or aren't you willing to say yet?
The PDFs kind of serialise it a little bit, yeah. And the factions actually move the story on, rather than just being a faction. These are the evil Fed guys or whatever. It does actually. They do play a part in the storyline. Like the Reapers, they play a major part in the whole thing. In fact, you could say the Reapers are the key faction.
Oh, right, okay. And immediately it's like, Reapers, okay.
The Reapers. Have I put the Reapers on? We've got the Reapers saying, they're way down the road. Have I not listed the Reapers? I'm just checking my own. I'm checking my own stretch goal thing. I haven't put them on, have I? Oh, right, there you go. I've given something away then.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. The Reapers, I guess they'll be beyond 90k then. Or I might slot them in before if people want them.
Because it was, as I say, because obviously from the way you've done the roadmap now with the cases, so we've seen the fact that, okay, beyond the 60k point, we then start getting new factions with the clickers, and then the Tong, and then the criminal gangs. So we see kind of all that coming on, and we see some interesting hints with names like Great Uncle Thulu and stuff like that.
Great Uncle Thulu, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Yes.
The White Rabbit, yeah.
Yes.
Tom Gaunt. Yeah, people think I like the idea of Tom Gaunt.
Tom Gaunt and Raphael, yeah. Yeah, please don't let that be a turtle.
It's not a turtle. No, it's not a turtle.
No. So, as you say, you're kind of starting to give pointers to the kind of thing of where you're going. And obviously one of the things behind all this is your styling. Now, whereas, you said kind of, okay, Empire exists in a kind of steampunk universe, the one thing that has been very noticeable is that styling-wise and sculpt-wise, as far as the minis are concerned, you've kept pretty faithful to the literary figure.
Yes.
So even with things like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the stuff we've seen, and Jack the Ripper, and a couple of other bits, and some of the other miniatures we've seen, they are very much as they would have appeared in the novels, as opposed to what we've seen with, what Hollywood's done with it, for example.
Yeah, I didn't want to go kind of League of Gentlemen, Mr. Hyde kind of thing. I didn't want to go like, Incredible Hulk kind of look. I see him more as, if you read the, like you say, you read the description in the book, he's a guy with a heavy forehead but he's a big guy, a really big guy. Unbelievably large. But he's a guy, but he's incredibly strong.
Yeah, I mean, even with the things like one thing that was marked between, we mentioned in the Majesty's name, and they previewed a couple of their sculpts. I think it was yesterday.
Right.
And they had Jack the Ripper and Fagin appeared, and they're both very steampunk, because like Jack the Ripper's got this huge mechanical arm with a big claw for. I mean, it almost looks like a lightning claw from the Terminator.
Right.
So that sort of thing, it's very steampunky. Fagin's got a couple of like mechanical arms, so very much more a kind of steampunk sort of feel to it. Whereas yours seems very much more still the kind of Victorian side, very much, as I say, very much more the literary figure, as opposed to steampunk. And then obviously you've got all the little bits with the vehicles and what you're working towards there. But it does seem to be that you've taken a particular turn, and obviously I suppose part of that is also to do with the Gothic horror you got involved, yeah? Yes. I
see that the people are separate from the machines in a way.
Yeah.
They use machines, but they're not machines, if you like, or they're not part machines. There are machines that look like people, with the clickers and things, but there are not people. They don't adapt to themselves, if you know what I mean. Then it's not Neuromancer or something like that, where you've got a bionic arm or a mechanical steam arm. There isn't much of that. There are some characters. Well, they are machines, like the exoskeleton. It's just a man operating the machine. He is not part machine, and he doesn't do anything machine-like.
Mm-hmm.
But the weapons and things like that, the weapons are more advanced.
Yeah. It's a style choice down different directions of steampunk, isn't it? Because I mean, obviously steampunk itself is quite a diverse genre in that sort of sense, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So obviously, where we are with, sorry, I've lost where we were. Hang on a second. Where we are, we're at just under 55,000 at this point in time. So you're mapped out to 90k, and we've got lots of things like lots of vehicles and stuff planned with like ornithopters and the steam gyrocopter.
Did you check your email, Neil?
Pardon? Did
you check your email?
Did I check my email?
I sent you a picture of the ornithopter.
Oh, I've not seen that. Hang on a second. I shall have to have a look at that. Because I think the one thing that was interesting as well was that when you were the video you featured and a couple of the concept drawings. I mean, things like the time machine, for example, because you featured a time machine, and of course these days, when everybody thinks of a time machine, they automatically think of the film version. Don't they? And yet, you yourself, it looks like you've gone back to the original concept again from the original Jules Verne novel. Sorry, H.G. Wells novel. Yes.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we looked at what we talk about in the book, rather than somebody else's interpretation of it and just taking that and building on it. But I wanted to give it wheels because I thought you watch the one in the movie, like build the time machine, but you can't move it anywhere, and if you put wheels on it, it'd be much more effective, so we put little wheels on it. That's the main change. Oh, and the fact that it's a huge clock face at the back that sits behind the guy with lots of little clock faces embedded in it. Yeah. And
I've just opened the picture of the ornithopter. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. That was not what I was expecting at all.
Like that, yeah.
That is really cool.
That's more steampunk.
That is very much more steampunk.
That's where we're sort of heading. If you like what we're doing to begin with, it sort of lays the sort of foundations for what we're moving through up the sort of map.
Yeah. I take it from what you're saying. I mean, so we've got these vehicles mapped out up to 90,000, and then you've got this nice little hint at the end, okay, about where we go to next, maybe Mars. Now there is a couple of directions you can go there, isn't there? Especially considering the literature of the time. Are we looking H.G. Wells or are we looking Edgar Rice Burroughs?
No, we're looking more.
Or don't you want to say just yet?
We're maybe looking a bit more Howard Carter than John Carter. Let's say that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So that kind of. But H.G. Wells as well. So you look at a hybrid kind of concept that sort of covers that area.
Right. Okay. That is quite intriguing. Now is that something that wasn't that is kind of looking much further ahead than what you'd originally planned with Requiem?
Well, I've got bunches of concept art worked out for it, so the concept art, the basics is all done. But the miniatures, obviously, we're way down. We haven't touched anything miniature-wise.
Yeah.
So we've got the basic idea. I'm not giving anything away by saying, tripods, but different. There's a twist on the whole tripod thing. It's not necessarily giant tripods. Let's put it that way. And the aliens are not necessarily what you would expect.
Okay.
I can't really say it. I'd have to show you, Neil, and that's kind of if we get there, I can show people.
No, that's fine.
And to understand what I'm talking about, I'd have to show you. So.
Right. The interesting thing with obviously, as you say, it looks like you got Requiem planned out to at least to a certain stage of okay, Requiem is phase 2 of Empire. And then you've obviously at some point, you know what you want to do with phase 3 and, whether there's a phase 4 and phase 5 or what have you.
Sure.
Is it going to be a case of, depending on how the Kickstarter goes, all of a sudden you're going to be finding that stuff that you hadn't planned to put into this particular phase, you're going to be pushed towards? Or is it going to be a case at some point you're going to say, well, that's all that we've really got planned, and for anything else, it's going to be phase 3. It's going to be another expansion.
Well, when we reach the sort of level where we can talk about the Mars bit, it'll be kind of like, do we change our plans and just go whole hog into the Mars section as well, or do we sort of say, okay, here's a quick look at the Mars stuff, and there will be bits of it in this. And that's I can't really make a decision until we get there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I'm quite happy for the people supporting the Kickstarter to actually drive sort of the direction of the business kind of thing for a while. So if people say, yeah, let's get on with doing that, then we'd be foolish not to sort of support that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is obviously a mark already we've seen with you of what's happened. You have kind of acted very much in a partnership with things. The clamour for points for money sort of thing that almost kicked up almost from day one in some senses.
I know, that really caught me by surprise, because I thought I'd plotted the whole thing quite well, for people to kind of go into. But obviously they don't want to they've got a budget to work to, and they kind of want more stuff, but they don't want to go too far, I understand that. That's fine, I get it.
I must admit, I put my hand up to say I was one of the people kind of going, excuse me, can we have this, please?
That's fine, yeah.
Primarily because there did seem to be a huge gap between two pledge levels. I was like, well, but I want a bit more than that, but I don't want all of it.
I know. Like I say, you study other people's kind of Kickstarters, and you kind of go, okay, that's how they've structured theirs, and that they've done the same, and they've done the same. You think, oh, that must be the pattern that people like. Thinking that, okay, most people want to pledge around about £100, maybe about $150 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll work to that, and then the sort of 200 stretch, the 200 one is kind of something for people who are really committed to wanting all of it, thinking, oh, not a lot of people will want that. And the complete collector is kind of a, it's out there kind of thing, if people go for that, that's great, it's a good deal. It's a really good deal.
I then got a chance to have a quick chat with Wendy, and we started off again by discussing what her feelings were about this whole Kickstarter experience.
I think there's quite a lot of customers that have come on that don't, we didn't really, this is our first one, that don't actually, they've never backed a Kickstarter before, so they don't quite understand how to pledge, and that you can add to it and that you can change it whenever you want. It's quite a new concept, isn't it? And it depends what happens along the way, but we'll see how things go at the end, because as we didn't know how it was going to go at all, and how popular it's been and how much support we've had. It's been absolutely phenomenal. And of course with us, everyone, we're quite well known as a company, but obviously we're having new customers all the time. It's quite surprising, but a lot of people do know us, and it's putting yourself out there saying, "Oh, this is Westwind. We're going on to the Kickstarter. Will you support us? Do you like what we're doing?" Mm. And it's finding out it could be quite damaging if people didn't. If everyone went, "Oh, well, no, we're not interested," it's oh, as a company, it was quite a big decision, really, to go on.
I mean, do you think there's potentially a danger, and especially with the Kickstarter thing, that you're suddenly going to find that you have everything up front? That people will pile into the Kickstarter and they'll get what they want, and then people coming on behind will suddenly go, "Well, I didn't get into the Kickstarter, so I don't know if I'm going to back it." And then, is there potentially a danger that you'll find that the majority of people who are after stuff for Empire are going to be on the Kickstarter?
No, I don't think so, Neil. I don't, because what tends to happen with our games and with Empire of the Dead in general, it's nicely ticking over on the first tranche of releases, and people are still getting into the game. Yeah. We've got customers all the time on the Westwind website buying the rules and the box factions, and maybe they've never heard of the Kickstarter. So we've still got that happening, and also from our shops, because we distribute ourselves, we don't go to any of the distributors. They are very interested in picking it up. Yeah. When after the Kickstarter has finished, it will only make it more popular.
Right.
It seems that's what the feedback is. They're not, nobody seems to have been put off by it, because it's such a great game as well.
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't they want to play it? It's just daft, really. I don't think you can say, well, all my customers have bought it on the Kickstarter, so I'm not remotely interested. It's not that. There's different customers within, like the clubs. People are buying it at clubs and playing it at clubs. People likewise prefer to go into stores to play, or gaming venues to play. So I think there's different customers all over. It just seems to be that way.
Yeah.
So no, I think it'll really get the game out there, which is one of the things that we wanted to do was raise the awareness of everyone. Look at this great game here from a small UK company, and to be able to, get some of the production taken care of, because that's always been the biggest time-consuming thing for us, and it stops us from moving forward because there's not many of us there, and to be able to offload the moulding is massive. It's huge. It really is. So the more that people have supported us, we can now say, well, that faction, send it off and get that done. And then we can get it spit. I mean, we manufacture everything at Westwind, which is fine. We can do that, but it's the actual moulding side it's quite a skilled job.
Yeah.
And we've got a good company that we have used in the past that are very, very good, and they will take care of that side of it. So this is what it's allowed us to do, the Kickstarter, more than anything. Mm-hmm. So it's great.
Okay, so once the Kickstarter's finished, and we've now got all these factions available. These new factions. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, even from what we've seen with like the Order of the Dragon and the police factions, and the extra figures for the Brotherhood and what have you. How are you going to market those? Are they going to be box sets the same as the initial box sets for the game? So you're going to have more faction box sets? Are they going to be marketed in blisters? And also, have you thought about how you're going to how the rules are going to be available? Are they just going to be like free PDF downloads, or are they going to come included with the box set, or what?
Right. We haven't decided completely, Neil, is the answer to that. We haven't made an absolute decision on how they are going to be packaged. Right. Have we on the new factions? Obviously, they have to be packaged nicely to go through to the shops, and we do. If we do decide to go blister-wise, there's a number of options open to us with the colour backing cards. But we've also got... I do think so, yeah. I do think the factions will be boxed because, in a way, you've got to... that's how they sell on the shelf. They really... They love to just pick up the box faction and away they go.
Yeah.
And the original boxes are still doing really well, you know.
Yeah.
Still selling really well. So I think the fact that we've had all this support, it will allow us now as well to do the nice boxes, because that's a huge cost as well.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Everything. So yeah, I think probably everything will be in a box faction, and the PDFs. Andy, that they're producing at the moment, they eventually will be compiled together, will they? Into a book.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there you go.
One last question before you go and we get Andy back. Has the response to it taken you by surprise?
Yeah, absolutely. Really shocked. That first day was unbelievable. The information went out, and we've got a big following. You know, we've got quite a big mailing list, and we didn't quite know whether people would support us, and we're absolutely over the moon, you know, and just wanted to say thank you to everyone for backing us so far and supporting us and helping us progress with the game. So yeah, we're absolutely over the moon as how it's going at the moment. I'm just really surprised that it's gone so well and continues to do so. There's still a lot to come. So yeah, I'm really pleased. We're both are.
We then got chatting about where the whole direction of Empire of the Dead could be going in future. Here's Andy again.
If we get beyond, Mars is big. You're talking about a whole new world. So you're talking about British colonial troops. You're talking about Prussians on Mars. You're talking about alien races on Mars and new machines.
Oh right, so we're going.
Yeah, going to Mars. Yeah.
Oh right, okay.
The Martians might be coming here as well, but we're going to Mars. Let's say it's a two-way street. So
potentially at that point, it becomes a whole different ball game, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It becomes more of it's a separate sort of thing, but it becomes kind of like a bigger game, a bigger skirmish game where you can have more. You could have units of infantry. And stuff like that.
Yeah. So it almost becomes a secret Third Reich sort of level sort of game, doesn't it?
It's maybe more close quarters than that because the weapon is not as long range. So
Yeah.
Still playable on a smallish table. You don't need a bigger table.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So I mean, at that point, is it still Empire of the Dead, or is it a case of at that point you're kind of looking at that's going to need a different set of rules to cover that sort of level?
I don't know yet. We'd have to see. It may be that you can use sort of 3 units of 8 figures, that kind of size thing, and machines.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a small squad-based kind of action.
Yeah.
With the same rule set, because it is a really quick-to-play rule set. It's not slow.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Because we play demo games, and the demo games only last 30 minutes, and they've kind of got 30, 40 figures on the table. So it's pretty quick and ruthless.
Yes. Is there anything that you want to cover as far as this chat's concerned? Is there anything that you want to talk about at the moment?
I can tell you that a lot of things we've got listed on the map we are working on.
Right. Okay.
So we are working on them. Whether we get them finished in time for the end of the Kickstarter, I don't know. But I have seen some of them. The ornithopter that's finished, and sorry, not the ornithopter, the gyrocopter.
Gyrocopter. Oh right, okay.
Gyrocopter's complete now. It's gone to Spain to be painted.
Yeah.
The only thing that's missing is my part, which is the pilot. I haven't got a pilot we'll be able to show the actual machine. I want to show people the machines because we haven't been showing. We've showed sort of short video footage of it, but I'd rather show the finished piece.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
A work in progress kind of thing. So we've got the ornithopter, all the coaches and carriages. We've finished all of those. What else have we got done? Andy, the guy who makes the machines, he's making this thing. He's making a land dreadnought, which is basically. It's not huge. I'd say it's 6 inches long, kind of tracked vehicle.
All right.
Imagine it's the shape of a dreadnought with tracks on, and then sort of like a big turret on the front with a gun in it, and then you've got a crew of like naval brigade guys manning it.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, actually. It's better than the description. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can see how that fits, especially with, I noticed one thing on the roadmap. You started talking about criminal gangs, thugs, and maybe new civilians and stuff. So does that basically mean when you get to that sort of level, you're going to be resculpting a lot of the existing ranges that I suppose at the moment you'd look at using from the existing Vampires Wars range? Yeah,
I mean, Vampire Wars is 10 years plus old. So, everything moves on. I think I'm a better sculptor now than I was 10 years ago. It's just better quality. We're making it on computer now, so it's just way better. So, yeah, there'd be new models for the thugs and the criminal gangs. And the servants. We've never really done Victorian servants, but people have asked a lot for them. So we're talking butlers and maids and house cooks and things like that. And then I thought, we can do an armed version of those as well, can't we? I've not got on my list.
Yeah.
But I've got that in reserve, so I could give them shotguns and things like that. I can just see them defending the house from a bunch of clickers and things.
Yes. Yeah. As you say, it's almost like the way the scenarios work suddenly take on a different twist. I mean, especially when you start looking at some of the factions, when you start throwing Holmes and Watson into and the police factions and stuff, it stops becoming just a straight up fight, doesn't it? It kind of changes into something a little bit different.
It is. You can use the scenarios like the prisoner and stuff like that from the book, and they have a bit more sort of true to the book kind of period.
Yeah. I mean, are you planning on because the book essentially has, 5 different scenarios, 6 different settings.
Yeah.
Are you actually planning on producing another set of scenarios, or I mean, obviously, you've got the Holmes and Watson one from the free download. Are you looking at producing some more scenarios anyway? I
think the new characters should bring a lot to it, in that kind of respect.
Yeah.
They have their own specifics, but, some of the monsters are quite powerful. Particularly the monster, he's quite powerful.
Yeah.
And they have their own sort of sub-rule set, if you like. Not that change the game dramatically, but that they reflect the actual character of that model. So the monster, for instance, in his attacks, he can throw them 6 inches kind of thing. So, over buildings, through, into walls, under machines. It's different. It changes the game that way. So there are, although you might be playing the same scenario, if you introduce the monster as one of your characters on the opposite side, then you better watch out. You better go with something sort of that can compensate for that.
Yeah.
Like a Gatling gun. That'd be pretty good.
Yes, you just want the Queen to wield it, yes.
Yeah, or an exoskeleton. The exoskeleton is big. It's a good, it's about 90 mil tall. Must be something like that. Yeah, it's big. So you could take the monster on, give him a good kicking.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that aren't in the basic rules, but that's already been funded, are the rules for carriages and what have you.
Yeah.
Are they a massive game changer? And also, scenario wise, something that was immediately flagged as soon as the carriages came on board is that can we have chase scenarios and that sort of thing? Is that sort of thing involved in those rules?
Okay, so from talking to Sam and Nigel, the guys who wrote the basic rule set, when I've discussed coaches and carriages, their ideas for these are, well, they could give it to you more detail, but basically you as a faction, you can spend some of your money to either hire or purchase a carriage, or it may be Black Maria for the police, or some other contraption.
Yeah.
And that basically comes with a driver. Okay. And depending on how you progress in the campaign, you can equip the machine with, you can actually put weapons on it, or the driver can become part of your faction.
Oh, well.
Rather than just a driver, you can actually use him away from the carriage. So it does actually work to your advantage to use a coach or a carriage. You can carry so many people in it, and depending on the skill level of your driver, you can do certain things in the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't be more specific because it took him about 30 minutes to explain it all to me. And so yeah, you can have chases and things like that. Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people were originally kind of going, well, aren't the carriages essentially just street dressing?
No.
Right.
No, I mean the sort of things like the mechanical. You've seen this mechanical like adaptation set.
Yeah.
So you can take a carriage. It comes with you get a set of 4 legs and you get a little boiler thing, and you can basically adapt nearly all of the coaches and carriages. It won't fit a couple of them.
Yeah.
I think it won't fit Dracula's carriage, which would look a bit odd anyway, with legs. But that kind of thing, you can actually climb over walls with that thing and stuff like that. And so it becomes useful in its own respect, especially if you mount a gun on it. Yeah.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So all of a sudden, yes, you have a Hanson cab, and then you mount legs with it and put a Gatling gun on it, and all of a sudden, yes, it becomes an entirely different thing entirely. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's a little mini tank or an armoured personnel carrier kind of thing. It's a Victorian one, of course.
Yes.
So it becomes more steampunk. Yeah.
Yeah. But obviously, with the fact that that's an option, because I mean, I know depending on what people's views of the Empire of the Dead universe is concerned, some people want to go down the steampunk route, some people want to go down more the gothic horror route, and with what you're doing, it seems that you're allowing that particular space to exist, aren't you?
Yeah, they can do what they want with the rules. I mean, we've always been kind of open. Like Secrets of the Third Reich is an open system. You can use any miniatures you want in it. We don't say you must only use blah blah miniatures, our miniatures. Use World War II miniatures if you want to use World War II miniatures. Or that, I mean.
I mean, the one thing that is apparent to be missing faction-wise from the kind of that sort of period and stuff, although there are some minis in the vampire range, are an Egyptian faction or mummies and that sort of things. Is that something that's planned, or is that something that currently falls outside of your particular remit from where you want to go?
Well, it's all kind of in the Mars thing.
Oh right! Oh yeah! All of a sudden, I see where you. Hang on, there's a particular Doctor Who episode that springs to mind on that one.
yeah, Sultek, and all that kind of thing. Yeah, that's an old one, but yeah.
Yeah, Pyramids of Mars, mate.
Pyramids of Mars, yeah, Empress of Mars. Yeah.
Right, okay.
You see where I'm coming from with
I see exactly where
Carter thing?
I must admit, I wasn't quite expecting that. That's a little bit more left field than what I was expecting.
Yeah. Well, Howard Carter's the wrong time period, but I'm just using him as a reference. I can't remember the Egyptologist of the day kind of thing. I can't remember his name. But Howard Carter sort of sums it up.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. So
we just say that Howard Carter, or somebody Howard Carter-ish, discovers something that changes the whole sort of nature of things.
Oh, right. So this either so depending on how this Kickstarter goes, this either suddenly falls into the back of Requiem, or it's potentially something to be expanded.
It is, yeah.
In the next, for the next Kickstarter. Yeah. Okay. Right. So coming back to Requiem, plan is to look at delivering things June, July. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, is that going to be a case of it'll be shipped first and then put in the shops and then kind of go from there?
Yeah. We will not ship it to shops. I mean, we've got a bunch of it done now.
Yeah.
But we will not have that for sale at Sloot. I guarantee that. it will ship out to backers first, absolutely.
Right. Okay. So now that's been a bit of a sore point on a couple of things. Yeah. Right. Okay. And
I mean, I wouldn't do that. It'd kind of undermine the whole point. Kind of people backing us and getting in there first, and actually having the goodies kind of like weeks before everybody else.
Yeah, sure. Now I know one thing. Several people have already asked, and whether or not you've considered this or not, but is it going to be a case of, come the end of the Kickstarter, are you going to have this thing whereby, okay, well, the Kickstarter's over, people have paid the money for the pledge, and at the point where you'll gather, you've got this big questionnaire to fill in with what you're going to do with the stuff outside of your pledge levels, what you're going to order. I mean, have you decided at that point whether you're going to allow all people to order some more stuff at that price? Or is that something you're still considering?
It's a tricky one. We have to figure it out, but I think we will open it up, people, because a lot of time we've had a hell of a lot of requests to pay by PayPal, to buy things by PayPal.
Yeah, sure.
And it's not our, Kickstarter don't accept PayPal.
No.
So we're kind of stuck, So we would see that as an opportunity for people who've kind of, because a lot of war gamers and gamers, what they like to do is buy and sell their stuff on PayPal, on eBay, and that pays them into a PayPal account, and then they can't use that money apart from to use it with somebody who accepts PayPal. So, that kind of completes the circle for us.
Yes, yeah. One thing, I imagine people have already asked, well, the stuff that currently exists, can you ship it immediately? And I suppose with the fact that, especially that you're offering free shipping, I imagine that's going to be a case of, well, no, it's all going to ship at once, because otherwise, otherwise it's just too expensive to drip feed everything.
You're right. Yeah, we can't afford to split ship it, because we could if people were paying for the shipping.
Yeah.
Because if you wanted the first batch, okay, we paid for that. But because it's all kind of inclusive, we have to sort of send it out as a batch. But I'm thinking that we might be able to, if we're on target, if we keep going at the speed we're going at, talk about sculpting and moulding and production-wise, etc., and it all coming in, because we haven't had any problems at the moment. Like I say, all the coaches and carriages we've completed. All of the bits and pieces of metal for those things, we've got those done. It's mainly the stretch goals that I haven't started sculpting yet.
Yeah.
I'm about. I've got 20 of the Requiem models on my desk, the missing ones.
Right.
So I figure there's about probably 12-ish missing after that. Plus, I don't know how many stretch goals guys are going to hit.
Well, this is it. Yeah. It's a bit of a moving target, isn't it? It
is. Yeah. So I could say, I would definitely have it done a month early. Yeah. Or no, it'll take me another 4 weeks. Depending on how successful it becomes towards the end.
Yeah.
But right now, we're doing really well. It's quite a good motivator.
And as we were talking earlier, it is very much a case of it's got its own dynamic to it, hasn't it?
Oh, it really focuses your mind. Because you need to be doing that, and then if you don't do that, like now, I haven't done my daily update today because, I've had that many things to do. So I'm going to do a double update tomorrow. I've been doing this thing where I unlock one of the images on there. So
yeah.
I should do 2 tomorrow.
Yes, because and then you start teasing people with, you kind of got caught out a couple of days ago, didn't you? Just happening to mention Alice, and all of a sudden people are going, yeah, you want to see that?
I know somebody saw that, Neil. It was on a banner advert on the West Wing page because I just put, just for a laugh, I just thought it's got vampires, it's got werewolves, and I put it's got cats. I just put a picture of the face, the cat with all the teeth.
Yes.
Just a little thin picture of the cat's face on the thing, and some guy saw that on there and was kind of went, "Oi, where's this one then? It says cats." So, I'm like, okay, where did I put that picture? I guess people want to see that. And people liked it, so there you go. I'll see if I can get him done. Or her, him and the cat.
Well, it's been fantastic to chat, Andy. I must admit, having seen Empire of the Dead and what have you, I was kind of hanging on and thinking, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to, when am I going to get involved in this particular game? And so the Kickstarter kind of really got me off my backside to say, yeah, it's a good time to actually get involved with this. And I've got my own things going on. And I mean, one interesting thing I thought was because in your singles you've got there's an awful lot of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen appearing. Well, I think most of them actually are in the singles. And somebody said, oh well, as rules and stuff, they turn up as individual hirelings and what have you. Have you thought about putting them as some special rules for a faction for them?
Well, I couldn't do that. I mean, that's somebody else's kind of thing. But if you wanted to do that, I couldn't.
I'm just thinking it's because I've been getting lots of ideas and stuff with a lot of the characters involved. But it's not just it can be just a straight up skirmish game, but it can be so much more as well. If they're getting all the characters involved with all the criminals and all that sort of thing.
And the magic as well, magic and stuff, and demons and there's all sorts.
This is it. I mean, just some of the standard stuff, like for example, doing the Hand of the Baskervilles, and the Hand of the Baskervilles turns out to be a werewolf, and all this sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, that'd be a good one. Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Yeah, that was an idea that immediately cropped up, and all of a sudden taking an awful lot of the existing novels and putting a slightly left twist on them, including the gothic horror and all this side of things. And
I love doing that. I mean, I love you take something that people just see as ordinary and kind of steady, and then you sort of go, okay, what happens if we do this and twist it, and oh right, then the whole dynamic of the thing changes, and you can chuck all kinds of stuff in. I mean, one of the ideas we had after Secrets was like, oh, what if we sort of did the same thing to the American Civil War, the old Secrets thing to the American Civil War.
Oh, okay. Sort
of really messed around with it, but we did Empire Instead because I like Victoria and stuff.
Yes, I suppose you can only do one thing at a time.
You can, yeah. Well, that was years ago. We were talking about doing that, but we never got around to doing that. We do other things instead. We got involved in Forged in Battle and then Empire of the Dead.
Yeah. So. Now, obviously, people have been talking about things like Secrets, and there's already been comments of, depending on. Now you've dipped your toe into Kickstarter, is there a possibility that you're going to be doing the same for maybe Book 3 of Secrets?
There is, yeah. Very strong possibility.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
is that just like a tantalising and we'll leave it there till next time sort of thing?
Well, I might have to wait. It depends how things go, but end of the summer, hopefully, We have announced it kind of in a bit, because we sort of did an open letter on the Facebook page and on the forum saying what we intended to do this year.
Yeah.
Just three general things. The first one being Empire of the Dead. The second one is Forged in Battle's got an Ancients range coming out. And then we've got Secrets of the Third Reich, the sort of reissuing of the book.
Yeah.
And the hopefully new US Marines and Japanese armies for it. Well, the Japanese are really weird.
Well, I say the Russians were left field, so I can imagine what the Japanese are going to be.
Well, the Japanese, blimey, it's like Princess Mononoke meets the Imperial Japanese Army. It's kind of,
Now, some people, yes, as soon as you mention anything to do with Studio Ghibli, some people would, ears prick up and kind of go, oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I like it, yeah.
Oh right, so we can. That immediately sounds interesting.
yeah, some weird stuff.
Thanks a lot for chatting. It's been great. It's been great to talk and go over some of your ideas, and you let us into some sneak peeks of what's coming in the future.
Sure.
I mean, congratulations on how it's gone so far.
Thank you. I'm really pleased with it. It's been brilliant. And thanks to everybody out there for supporting us. It's been fantastic.
Very best of luck with it. Obviously, we've got, 18 days to go?
We have, yeah. Lots of surprises to come as well. Right.
Okay. So 18 days to go. At least 18 updates, and probably at least a week's worth of no sleep whatsoever.
Yeah, I need the sleep. I've got to get over the laryngitis. Yeah, okay. Although, the last week, maybe no sleep. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, it's pretty. I wouldn't say stressful, it's just the excitement. You just can't, your mind is basically turning and turning and turning, you know. It's kind of, oh, did I deal with that? Oh, what about that? What about this? You know.
Yeah, and of course, I suppose, especially with it, you know, with Westwind being, you know, small company and stuff, you haven't got lots of artists churning out concept work. It's all kind of, oh, hang on a second, where do I put that picture?
That's me in the evening. That's like watching TV. Going, right, okay, got to do all this now. What's it going to look like? Oh, okay, it's a big brain on legs. Oh, I never said that.
Fantastic, mate. Yeah, it's been great to chat. Very best luck with Requiem for the next couple of weeks.
All right, mate, take care.
Okay, take care. So,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is very happy to be sponsored by Coat d'Arms Paints. Now, Coat d'Arms have been supporting miniatures painters with their products for well over 20 years in some way, shape or form. Their current range is 150 sets of acrylic paint, which are available both as individual colours, but also in paint sets depending on period. Things such as the Ancients paint set, the World War II German, World War II American, World War II Russian paint sets. And they also include things like an ACW set and even a Horsetown set. That's one way to purchase your paints. And they also do triads. Now, if you're a fan of the 3-colour system, made famous by the likes of people like Kevin Dallimore, you may like to purchase your paints with a dark shade, a medium shade and a highlight. And the triad system from Coat d'Arms allows you to do this. They also have ranges of textured paints called Brushscape, which allow you to paint from textures onto bases as well as colour. And these are ideal especially for smaller scale models. And if you're a fan of the dip method of painting, then Coat d'Arms have their own product available called Super Shader. This is available in light brown, dark brown and black. Coat d'Arms Paints have a whole range of products available to try. Check them out at www.blackhat.co.uk and be sure to tell them that we sent you. So, I hope that hearing about the Kickstarter has got you excited about Empire of the Dead, or perhaps at least asking questions about what this thing's all about. Okay, so I suppose it's time I talked about the rules and gave you an overview of what they're all about. So as you've obviously gathered by now, Empire of the Dead is set in a Victorian universe, something slightly different from our own. There has been a second industrial revolution, which has been driven by the finding of this new fuel called Infernium. And this has led to, a revolution in technology, which is kind of driving the world at the moment. But as well as the elements of steampunk in the game, you also have several elements of gothic horror. So, as well as the steampunk elements, you've also got vampires, werewolves, and zombies, and the likes of things that were hanging around at the time in Victorian fiction. So we end up with Sherlock Holmes. It's the world of Moriarty, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Jack the Ripper, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And these are all caught up together in this world of Empire of the Dead. If it was a film, think of it as something like Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes meets the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen meets Van Helsing. It's that sort of world that Empire of the Dead inhabits, okay? So as I said, it's a 28mm game, it's a skirmish game, and it's one of these things, it's called a faction skirmish game. So actually you only need a handful of models per side to start the game. Now, in the basic rulebook, when you start the game, you are one of 4 different factions. Those factions are being expanded by the Kickstarter, and we now have at least one other. So you start off with the Holy Orders. These are groups ostensibly allied with some sort of church that are fighting against the evil in the world. There are the Lycaons, who are the werewolves. Now, the werewolves are actually what I call a neutral faction in Empire of the Dead. Some would say they're evil, but it's more of a case of, in this particular universe, they're seen as the guardians of nature, if you like. Then you have everybody's favourite, the Nosferatu. Obviously, the vampires of the Victorian world. And finally, you have the gentlemen's clubs. Probably the most versatile of the factions. They can be, well, usually neutral. There can be some that are evil. There are some that are good. There are 4 that are identified within the book, particular gentlemen's clubs. One is called the Sons of the Empire. The second is the Darkfire Club. The third, the Wolfenjäger. And finally, the Zendarian Officers Society. But as I say, obviously, Gentlemen's Clubs is probably the most versatile faction within the rules. Now, there's all the factions that appear within the basic rulebook. There is a 5th faction, which is, as we're recording this, not long appeared on the Kickstarter. And that faction is the Supernatural branch, which appears to be a branch of the British Police Force. Obviously put in place to investigate all the distinctly shady goings-on that have been happening in the Empire recently. And we are promised that there are more to come as well, as far as factions are concerned anyway. And all these factions have different members, and all these members have slightly different abilities. But essentially you have a leader, a second in command, and then the kind of bog standard troops, if you like, depending on the faction. And you might have another one which is kind of equivalent to a sergeant, if you like. So usually in one occasion a 5th type of unit you can have for your faction in the game. As well as all these factions, you can actually use independent characters as well. There are already several available. Now these can be hired, or maybe even used as independent characters by the person running the game or what have you. Let's say at the moment, before the Kickstarter, there were only a handful of these. But this number of independent characters have been vastly increased by the models that are appearing as part of the Requiem Kickstarter. And all the details of these models are still being published. So we'll probably have to do another show at some point and let you know the details of everything that's come out. But currently everything that's available is either in the main rules. There is a separate free downloadable PDF called Gentlemen and Jackanapes, which details the stats of all the models that are available. And there is also a quick start set of rules that you can try Empire of the Dead with, which has a set, it actually has a free scenario with it, and it's actually Holmes and Watson hunting Jack the Ripper. Okay, so there's a particular scenario with a set of quick start rules to give you some idea of how the whole thing hangs together. And that's all freely available currently from the West Wind site, or at the very least from the forums. Okay, I believe you can even download from those forums without being a member, but don't hold me to that one, okay? So, that's the setup. First thing you do is you go away and you put your faction together. You can then play a game. Now, in the standard rulebook, you first of all generate which scenario you're going to play. You can obviously either choose which scenario you're going to play or generate it randomly. There are 5 different scenarios to choose from. Lost Artifact, where rival factions are searching for a lost or hidden artifact nearby. Fracas, which is essentially a gang fight. Blissful Ignorance, where members of the public are in danger from one faction or perhaps in need of rescue by the other. Entrapment, where one faction is about to ambush the other. And finally Rescue, where a member of a faction has been captured. Now this can either be by a rival faction or indeed by the police. Once you've selected the scenario you're going to play, you then need to know where you're going to play it. There are 5 locations in the game. There are the sewers, there are residential areas, there's a business area. The difference between residential area and the business area obviously is essentially the type of buildings in play. Residential area, obviously lots of houses and what have you. Business area, much more like warehouses, docks, that sort of thing. Then there's the countryside. And finally, there are the Botanical Gardens of Professor Julius Forbes Talbot. Okay, now the Botanical Gardens is a special sort of layout where effectively there are all sorts of genetically engineered plants available. If you're playing a sci-fi game, this would be the equivalent of playing on a death world, where it's not just the opposing faction that's out to get you, but the environment itself. You then determine your deployment zones. Each scenario has a certain number of different deployment zones that you can use. You position any scenario-specific items or markers. You roll for deployment. You each roll a dice, and the player with the highest roll chooses which deployment zone they're going to use. And then you roll for whether it's day or night. And again, you have an opposed dice roll, one against the other. Whoever rolls the highest gets to choose whether it's day or night. Obviously, certain factions, like vampires, for example, have advantages or disadvantages. So, for example, vampires have a distinct disadvantage when it's during the day. And once all that is decided, then of course you can start the game. Now, obviously, just to reiterate, is when you've got all the different scenarios in play and all the different locations, plus whether it's day or night, you've got a combination of something like 45 different scenarios you can possibly play. It's not 50 as, but for example, the sewers, it effectively always takes place at night, because obviously the sewers are something of a dark place. Okay, so that's talked about factions, it's talked about how you set up the game and whatever, but how do you play the game? Okay, that's the next bit. First off, the basics. All dice used in the game are not actually traditional D6s. This game uses D10s. D10s are becoming slightly more fashionable in use these days, simply because of the extra possibilities it gives you when you roll the dice. There is an argument over whether these will ever become massively popular or not, but this game uses D10s. Okay. All measurement is in inches, and the recommended ideal board size for this game is 4 foot by 4 foot. Although it says you can choose to play it on any size table, and if you wanted a really close encounter, you could reduce the size of the table. But recommended table size is 4 foot by 4 foot. Now, as I said, it's a faction war game. It's a game that is designed to take place in a campaign sort of setting. You can play one-off games, but the game is designed to take place in a campaign sort of setting. When you start the campaign, your faction will have between 5 and 7 models, usually. Each model is an individual, and these are characters, okay, and these characters can advance, gain extra skills and what have you during the course of a campaign. Each character is defined by a certain number of attributes. 9, in fact. These are movement, combat, that's as in your hand-to-hand combat skill, marksmanship, how good a shot you are, strength, how strong you are, fortitude, how you're able to shrug off an attack, attacks, the number of attacks you get, wounds, how many wounds you have, bravado, effectively this is morale, and then arcane, which is your magical ability. The turn is broken down into 4 phases. There is the maintenance phase, the initiative phase, the action phase, and the combat phase. So first off, is the maintenance phase, and this takes place simultaneously. So you check the victory conditions for your game, do things like roll for wound recovery, make morale checks, and invoke any unusual occurrences if you so wish. Then there is the initiative phase, You both roll a d10, and the one with the highest score is the winner. If it's a draw, the person who did not have initiative in the previous turn gets initiative. And if it's the first turn, you roll until somebody wins. So then it's the action phase, and during the action phase, you complete all your movement for a particular faction, either the faction that, the faction that won initiative initially, and you perform any actions that you're able to do through skills or what have you. And you must perform everything with one model before you move on to the next. So once the first player has activated and moved all their models, then the second player may do the same. And then there is the combat phase. And that's where combat is fought out. The player who has the initiative chooses the order in which the combats are fought. And we'll come on to that more in a minute, I suppose. But it has to be noted that the combat phase is for hand-to-hand combat, okay? The two main phases of the game are the action phase and the combat phase. Now, during the action phase, you can move. Obviously, there's very different types of movement. Walking, running, charging, that sort of thing. You can fly if you can so wish. You can hide. You can climb up stuff, obviously with the chance of falling and various other bits and pieces, and so on. You can then also perform actions, and there are various different things that are defined as actions. Actions include missile attacks, like shooting at people. However, you must physically have a marksmanship of at least 1 in order to fire at somebody, okay? You can use an arcane power. You can open or close a locked door. You can pick up or drop an item. You can assist another model to climb, or perhaps can become disentangled from something. You can go into watch and shoot mode, which is effectively Overwatch, okay? Or you can repair a weapon or equipment. So there are various actions you can perform, but obviously one of the main things is combat, or in this case, shooting. The way shooting works is really very easy. You have your marksmanship ability, you roll a d10, you add that to your marksmanship ability, and then you add or subtract a number of modifiers. There's a number of modifiers for the target, and there are a number of modifiers for whether you're in cover. And dependent upon the result of those modifiers, if the result is equal or greater than 10, you've hit your target. Okay, simple as that. Then you might want to check if you've wounded your target, and basically you have an attack strength, you have the fortitude of your target, you roll a dice, you compare that to a target number on a table. If you roll equal or better than the number on the table, you have inflicted a wound. Now, models have 1 or more wounds, and you roll on the wound effect table once they have lost their last remaining wound. Okay, and you can then have a flesh wound. You can be discombobulated, which is effectively like confused. You can be down, which means you fall down, or you can in fact be removed from play. Hand-to-hand combat works slightly differently. It's an opposed dice roll. Okay, basically you roll the number of d10 equal to your attacks. You add any modifiers. There's a certain number of combat modifiers depending on what weapons you're using. If you're using 2 weapons, you roll an extra dice, that sort of thing. You add all the numbers together. Whoever rolls the highest score has won the combat. And you inflict wounds in a similar way. Now, I also mentioned the use of arcane powers, my spells. There's various different things you can use in the game. The ones defined in the game include things like banishment, bless, demon trap, exercise, killing gaze, healing hands, summon vermin, stupefy, mesmerize, terrify, sanctuary, and a couple of others as well. So a limited number of spells are available, and only certain models can cast them, and some of them are only affect certain other models. Okay, but there is the ability to cast limited magic during the game. Each power has a target number. You roll a d10, you add your arcane ability to that d10. If that number equals or exceeds the target number of power, then you succeed. Simple. And finally, we come to the fact that you have to test a model's morale from time to time using its bravado skill. Okay, effectively you roll a d10, you add the model's bravado. If that score is 10 or more, then you have passed the test. This normally happens, for example, if your faction has been reduced to 50% or less, each of your miniatures must make a morale test, and if it fails, it's removed from play. Also, some monsters have the ability to be spine-chilling, terrifying, and therefore you must make a morale check before you can engage them in combat. Okay, that's normally the two times you need to use morale. Now, because of the type of sort of game it is, if you want to at any point during the game, you can always decide that you will voluntarily give up the scenario rather than carry on fighting. Sometimes it's worth doing simply if your faction is taking a pounding, then you may want to quit while you're behind, if you like, and run away voluntarily rather than perhaps suffer the consequences of your entire faction being wounded or taken out of the battle. So, of the 150-page rulebook, the actual rules themselves cover 30 pages. So they're not particularly complicated at all. I've done a quick whistle-stop through how everything works. Effectively, it's a very simple system. The majority of the time, you're rolling a d10, checking against the attribute that's being used, and if you roll above 10, you've succeeded. Very, very simple. So the majority of the book, roughly 90 pages or so, are taken up with describing all the factions in the game, describing all the weapons, the exotic weapons and equipment, and then defining how your campaign advancement works. Okay, because obviously you can advance during the game. The whole point of this thing is that your mobs get more powerful, they learn new skills, they gain more equipment. Okay? Now, as I said, this is a steampunk game, so as well as the whole gothic horror element to it, some of the equipment in use is slightly unusual, shall we say. Now, all the guns are fairly straightforward: light and heavy pistols, muskets, hunting rifles, shotguns, crossbows and bows. Plus, in hand-to-hand, you've got improvised weapons, knives, pistols, spears, stakes, swords, etc. Then you've got various bits of generic equipment which you can buy for your faction, including things like armour, lanterns, grappling hooks, holy relics, holy symbols, silver ammunition, especially useful for fighting werewolves, torches, that sort of stuff. And then you've got things like wonderfully exotic equipment. So you've got things like garlic grenades, heat rays, think about Mr. Wells in this particular instance, lightning field generators, net guns, night goggles, a steam gyrocopter, for which we are promised a nice miniature apparently, wolfsbane grenades, a steam-powered exoskeleton, and a couple of other bits as well. So, the weird and wonderful and wacky world of steampunk comes into play with the use of exotic weapons and equipment. The last few pages of the rules are taken up with pictures of the models, some examples of painting and scenery, and then templates and markers, because various battle effects will cause markers to be placed next to figures, which some people like, some people perhaps not so much. And obviously at the back there is a quick QRS for when you're fighting battles. And that, as they say, is that really. Fully contained set of rules, not particularly complex in any way, shape or form. Some really nice ideas for use with equipment and for use with factions. Okay, some would argue that why use D10s as opposed to using D6s. I suppose the thing with D10s, especially with the range of models that you get in this sort of game, you've got monsters that are stronger than humans, some which are much stronger than humans, and using this D10 range as opposed to a D6 range does give the extra ability to, make things stronger than, or gives an extra range for you to operate in, put it that way. Just a bit more flexible. I don't mind using D10 systems at all. Using different dice doesn't really bother me. I know some people have a real aversion to using anything other than D6s. For me, it doesn't particularly bother me. The rules themselves are fairly straightforward. As I say, anybody who's played any sort of faction skirmish game will find most things in here which are familiar. All the combat conventions are covered in the rules. Certain issues about fighting over obstacles, restrictions on movement with terrain and all that sort of thing, it's all covered in the rules. The advancement of factions is nicely done, and all in all it creates a really nice live world in which to operate. Steampunk is not really a genre I get into a lot. I quite enjoy, horror sort of games. Like for example, something like Fear and Faith from Ganesha Games. I enjoy it. I use those, especially when doing skirmish stuff, like, if you want to do like Buffy the Vampire sort of stuff, or especially kind of underworld sort of things. I've used those before, and I must admit, having looked at Empire of the Dead, my immediate thoughts were to kind of put my own little twist on the universe, move it from like the underworld films, which I know they're poor people, but I really like them, and it's nothing to do with Kate Beckinsale. Well, maybe partially to do with Kate Beckinsale, but I really like the ideas behind the Underworld series of films. So moving that into a Victorian steampunk setting is my idea of what I can do with Empire of the Dead, and that it allows you to do that sort of thing. It gives you a basic framework for what's happening, and I know the authors have got lots of ideas for extra bits and pieces to bring on board, but it does give you that Victorian element, the gothic horror setting. It's something to fire the imagination. As I say, with the Kickstarter bringing in all the kind of Victorian mythos, with the likes of Jekyll and Hyde, Jack the Ripper, obviously Sherlock Holmes, and all his opponents. There is an awful lot to go at within the genre, and you can basically build your world within the framework of Empire of the Dead. So, I like it. It has been one of those games where I thought, played it, I quite like this, and I've kind of been waiting and hanging on to see what happens with it. And then the Kickstarter came around, and I thought, at this point I'm going to go for it, because I like what they're doing with it, and I can even already see in my mind's eye how to do various bits and pieces. Okay, you don't necessarily need a lot of models for this. As I say, factions 5 to 7. The box sets are ideal to begin with. There's lots of extra bits and pieces to get hold of, should you wish. And we're looking forward to seeing what they're doing with the universe in future expansions. As part of the Kickstarter, we've been promised this new faction with the police kind of special investigations branch, supernatural branch. We've got PDF rules for the use of carriages, which already introduces whole new scenarios with things like carriage chases and stuff like that. And I'm sure there's much more to come. I'm only just starting to scratch the surface of Empire of the Dead, and I'm sure it's something we'll come back and revisit once I've played a few more games. I personally would recommend these. It will be interesting to see what these are like when compared to In Her Majesty's Name, which is obviously coming out in a few months' time. We've already seen some of the factions for In Her Majesty's Name. Things like the Egyptians, for example, are something that immediately kind of, that looks interesting, and kind of fit in towards the end, or the Egyptology stuff. They're kind of getting in towards that sort of thing as well. And that's something that is notably missing from Empire of the Dead. Okay, so maybe a future. Maybe this is something for the future. We'll wait and see. But it will be interesting to compare the two and see how they differ. However, that is Empire of the Dead. For me, it really scratches an itch with vampires and werewolves getting involved, and I've got loads of ideas firing off. So probably one of my skirmish games of choice at this point in time. Now, it's available from Westwind Productions. The rule set itself are £30. The starting box sets are £25 each. There are 4 factions, and there's a box of Victorian zombies, which are something that can be used with one of the factions. Also, lots of the Westwind Gothic horror range can be used with this. They have a lot of like civilians and that sort of stuff, and even like there's villagers and what have you. An awful lot of that range is compatible with the Empire of the Dead range, so you can have a look at those and see if they fit in. 2 things to note. If you're looking for a cheap way or a reduced cost way to get into Empire of the Dead, actually the Kickstarter is a great way of doing so. They have a couple of options available where you can buy the faction box sets at reduced prices. In the Kickstarter, the faction box sets are only £20 each as opposed to £25. Also, you can get a copy of the rules at a reduced price because they're offering a PDF copy of the rules as opposed to a full paper copy. So, if you like PDF copies of the rules, that's available as part of the Kickstarter. That means you can get up and running a bit quicker and a bit cheaper. Okay, so something very much worth considering, and especially, again, have a look at the Kickstarter. It runs to the 26th of March, and there are some very nice models in there. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Wargame Soldiers and Strategy magazine. Now, Wargame Soldiers and Strategy is published by Caravanserai Publishing, the publishing house that is responsible for Ancient Warfare and Medieval Warfare magazines. Wargame Soldiers and Strategy is published every other month, and each issue normally surrounds a particular theme. Now, that can be anything from US airborne operations on D-Day, campaigning in the Dark Ages, or the Colonial Wars, to name but a few. And every issue is packed full of ideas for scenarios, rules reviews, miniature reviews, painting guides, and even new rules and games. Add to that columns by people such as Rick Priestley and Richard Clark, plus all the latest hobby news and reviews, and you have an indispensable addition to your Wargames library. For all the news on the latest issues, and for subscriptions, check them out at www.wssmagazine.com. Well, that's about all we've got time for on today's show. I hope you found this in-depth look at Empire of the Dead and the Kickstarter that Westwind have been running of interest. Remember, if you're listening to this, that the Kickstarter finishes on the 26th of March 2013. Okay, so if you're listening to this after the 26th of March, you're going to have to wait until June, July 2013 before the miniatures will be available from the Westwind website. Now, this won't be the last you'll be hearing from Empire of the Dead on the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. Both myself and actually sometime co-host Mike Hobbs are both quite heavily involved in this particular Kickstarter, so I'm sure we'll be coming back to and discussing this at some point. Anyway, in the meantime, I'm going to leave it there. We'll be coming back with another show, actually talking about another Kickstarter really soon. The next episode 104, we'll be talking about a Kickstarter that started last week. That's like one at the start of March. That is the Torn Armour Kickstarter. I'll have an interview about that Kickstarter for you, and we can find out all about what's happening in Torn Armour, which is a fantasy skirmish game. And that should come out sometime next week. You might actually get a couple, because I'm also going to be chatting to the guys behind the Achtung Cthulhu Kickstarter that's currently running as well. I'm going to be talking to them early next week. As I record this, it's Friday the 8th of March. So I'm talking to the guys from Torn Armour today. I'll be talking to the guys from Achtung Cthulhu somewhere around about the 11th or 12th. So hopefully by the 16th or 17th of March you'll have a couple more shows to listen to. Okay, time to go. Until next time, take care, happy gaming, and I'll speak to you, obviously, pretty soon. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you want to know more about Meeples and Miniatures, there are several things you can do. First of all, you can visit the website at www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. If you want to contact the show at all, you can email me at neil@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. You can follow the show on Twitter. Simply look for M&M Podcast, or click the follow us on Twitter button from the website. We also have a group on Facebook. That's the Meeples and Miniatures Podcast Fan Club. Again, follow the link from the website. And finally, if you want to help us to support the show, you can always donate to the podcast by clicking the PayPal button on the donate page, again found on the website. Once again, thank you for listening. I hope you've really enjoyed the show. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.